Okay, so now for the animation. I've got, so we're moving down into beginning the animation. The animation, we're going to learn about the animation timeline, about what time code is, setting a frame rate, basics on keyframing, smart objects versus vector smart objects. We're going to just get into a little more into smart objects, and next week we're going to learn more about vector smart objects. But you saw me bring in a vector smart object when I copied and pasted artwork from Illustrator to Photoshop, and that's how I'd like you to incorporate Illustrator with Photoshop for your final project, the animation Project 5. So here is the assignment for Project 5. You'll be creating a web animation or video with the Photoshop timeline, and you'll be using Photoshop and Illustrator combined. For this assignment, you'll be creating a web animation or video in Photoshop. You're going to use the timeline panel to keyframe properties of text and image over a duration of time between 10 and 30 seconds. The text you type could be the name of your website with a tagline, or it could be a sentence that conveys an idea or triggers an emotion. The imagery you create to pair with the text should enhance the meaning of your message. Animate the imagery with the text so that together they are expressive with motion, while the text can be read easily in the time it appears on screen. So I have some examples that you can look at of different types of animation styles and kinds that you can choose from. The most primitive form that you'll find on the internet is the banner ad. So, but they're kind of fun to create. Advertisements. You could do a banner ad style if you want. Very simple. This is a link to just looking at banner ads and how they animate. Very simple animations with just text appearing most of the time. They tend to be annoying because they're advertisements, but the layouts are actually well thought out. So there's still a lot of design skill that goes into them, even though the animation itself is pretty simple and primitive with just text appearing. But there are just examples here you can look at to get ideas if you want to create something like this, just a simple banner ad. Let me look at, but as technology has been advancing and bandwidth has been getting broader and internet speeds have been getting faster, more and more you see animation integrated into websites, into the design of company websites. So these links show you some examples of animation integrated into a website. This first one here is an article that has what they think here are the 8 best animated websites. So it's inspiring to visit these. You can scroll down and click on the red text links to get to the website to see examples, just to get inspired. Is this the right one? Maybe. Let's see. Let's get started. Yeah, so this is the website with these different animations here about energy. And there's a description that talks about why they think it's a good example of an animated website, interactive. This one's really cool. Species in pieces. So these little triangles come together to form different animals in interesting ways. So that's the intro, and then you can click explore the exhibition and just see how these parts come together to create this animated character, these different ones. And I guess when you scroll, when you scroll your mouse up and down, changes will occur. There's also music. So what I like you to think about in seeing this one is how these different elements come together to form a well thought out image, the same as when elements come together to form a well thought out layout. So when you do your animation, think about constructing a final layout with where objects or elements come onto the screen to form something and then move off the screen to keep it streamlined and simple. So you can go through and click on these and explore to get inspired and see different animated works that are integrated into websites in different ways. Okay. The next one the next link I included is one that I designed for a client as part of a WordPress website. I did the animated graphics for an iPad app that's designed to help children improve reading skills, and this was the website that I helped them put together, and I created the header animation. So you can also create something like just this is a GIF animation that I just sized according to the specifications that WordPress gave me when I chose a specific a theme. And then I just designed the header using a combination of Photoshop and Illustrator and After Effects. So you can create your animation as just a header that will exist at the top of a web page if you want. And these other two are examples of also header space designs that I did when I was teaching my business branding online portfolio class, where I teach the essentials in Illustrator on how to design a logo and a brand for yourself as a designer, and then how to animate that logo in After Effects. And I am offering that class. It's 100% online, and I'm going to be teaching that class this summer, and it's just 4 weeks in the summer. So if anyone's interested in taking that class, it's a really great class to really build yourself as a brand, and you learn not only to create your logo and your animated logo, but you also launch a YouTube channel, you build a WordPress website where you can display your portfolio professionally, and I also show you strategies on how to sell online and promote yourself to your clients and to potential employers to really to really build your name as a designer and gain a much greater presence in the design world through your social media professionally and your website. So that's coming up this summer, and these are just examples of demos that I did. These are like not real companies, but I go through the whole process of developing the logo and doing the animated logo and putting it together into a WordPress, a website using WordPress to demo it. Okay, and then I'd also like to introduce you to kinetic typography if you haven't heard of it. Has anyone heard of kinetic typography? So what is kinetic typography? It's huge right now. It's like the new music video style for artists. Artists are using kinetic typography as well as music videos to promote their big hit singles. The top name artists use kinetic typography as well as emerging artists and people who do spoken word. Kinetic typography is where it's also could be called lyric videos, where there's animation on screen in sync to the sound of the words being spoken or being sung. So here's one example of that.
This unforgettable vacation memory. It didn't actually begin here. This
Sorry
memory
about
began
the
when
ad.
Dad
Something in chat. Let's see. Yeah, Michael Bublé. Yeah, I can help you tonight, Miguel. All right. So this is some of this probably can only be done in a program like After Effects where you can really do 3D animation, but a lot of this can be done with what we can do with the tools in Photoshop for animation. But for this assignment, I wouldn't recommend doing a whole song. That's a bit ambitious for the time that we have. But if you want to just do a line in a song that you really like, that's another option for this assignment. If you want to animate a song or a very short excerpt of a song to to the audio, I'll be showing you how to do that. So if you want to get inspired, look at some of these kinetic typography pieces. There's also some music videos just for inspiration there that I really like in the way that they combine photographic imagery with drawn imagery. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so for Photoshop, to get started you start in Photoshop for this, and you're gonna make a new document, and instead of choosing print, you can choose web or film and video options, because you're designing for the screen now, not for print, for an animation. You can choose any size. If you want to choose web, any size you like. If you want to choose film and video, I'm gonna recommend the HD TV 1080p. I might have put on the assignment, I think I put the old, I might have put, let's see, what did I put here for getting started? I had suggested to use an NTSC DV standard, but I changed my mind about that because we're in the new millennium, so I think systems can handle something larger. We're working with much higher resolution images than the time that I first thought up this assignment. So this, if you want to make a low resolution, smaller size animation, you can choose this and it's fine. But I'm gonna suggest that we work in the new standard, which is the first one that comes up, which is HDTV 1080p. For if you, and that makes a good that sets up your settings appropriately if you wanted to display your animation on an actual TV set, or that's in using the technology here in the United States. You could view all presets, and then if you scroll down, you'll find that NTSC DV is there. But if you click on it, you'll see the width and the height in pixels is a lot smaller. See, this is what I used to work in when I was in college. So that was a long time ago. Now we're on to at least high definition. So here's high definition. You're working with an image that's at least 1920 pixels by 1080. So we can go with either of those standards, but if you want the higher quality, larger image, it's going to look great on YouTube. Just go with this one, the high definition 1080p. And so I'm going to choose this for my demo. I like to work in film and video so that I potentially could display it not only on the computer or on YouTube or on a website, but also on an actual television set. I'm going to go ahead and name this my last name followed by my first initial hyphen, and then I'm going to put what is this? Project 5. Proj5. And leave all the defaults. It's wide screen, and you could change the background. Maybe I want to choose a color. So I click here, and I'll just choose this color. And then I'm going to say create. So when you choose, oops, let me just close that. So when you choose a television standard, because television sets tend to sometimes crop inwards around the frame, there are these guides here that are there to help so that your imagery doesn't get cropped, and important imagery doesn't get cropped. Like the innermost guides are called title safe. So if you have text, let me take my type tool and click and then type text. Maybe I'll make it bigger. Oops, I need to use my select the type. Go back to type here, make it bigger. Okay, so if you have text here, when you have your text, let me zoom out with Command minus. So let's say your text starts out of frame and then you move it in on screen. You don't want to move it so that it's hanging outside of this innermost boundary. The position that it goes to, its final destination, should be somewhere inside the title safe boundary. And if you were doing rolling credits, you wouldn't want the credits to be rolling so that some of the text is hanging outside of the title safe boundary. When I was new to video, I had some rolling credits, and it looked great looking at it on my computer, but then I was horrified that my words were getting cut off when displayed on a television. So that's why there is this innermost boundary. The most conservative boundary here is the title safe boundary, because it's just not forgivable if parts of words are getting cut off in your animation or video project. So you keep your text within that title safe boundary and you're safe. The boundary outside of that is the action safe boundary, and that's for important imagery. So if you had like a main character, you wouldn't want one of their eyes to be outside of that, or part of their face to be outside. So it helps with framing important imagery that doesn't matter, like the edges of a mountain or whatever background imagery. It's fine to go all the way off to the edge. Something like a logo. So let's say I make a logo here. This is my pretend logo. You wouldn't want to, if you had a logo in the bottom corner, you wouldn't want to hang it too far outside of the action safe boundary, because on certain TV sets, the part of the logo can get chopped off. So you keep the logo inside the action safe boundaries, this outermost guide. So those are there to help when you choose a television's preset standard. Okay. But when you start this, you're going to need to work with the timeline. So you can bring up the timeline under window in alphabetical order like this. Or let's say I was in my, let me reset my essentials. Or you can go to window and then workspace and choose the motion workspace, and then it'll bring up the timeline and any essential panels that are good for motion work or animation or video work. Okay, I brought a photo to work with for this demo, so I'm going to open it. Open. I'm going to open. And I know we're going over, so you don't have to stay, but I like to go until 7:30, so you have all the information. If you don't stay, you should watch the rest of this on video. Okay, so I'm gonna get my dog picture open. Okay, so I'm opening this dog. I made a selection already, so I'm going to go select, load selection of the dog. I'm going to just take my move tool and drag the dog into the animation destination. Let me go ahead and save this Photoshop file because I just named it. I didn't save it yet. So this needs to go to my Wednesday folder for this class. There it is. Last name, first initial, Proj5. It's saved as a Photoshop format file. So for this assignment, you need to turn in a Photoshop format file as well as a finalized animation file. So that's in the instructions here at the top. I guess I forgot to go over them. What the basic requirements for this assignment is that you are turning in a Photoshop document as well as a finalized file format of your animation, which could be a GIF animation or a video file. Imagery must be original and created by you in both Photoshop and Illustrator. You're required to use Photoshop Smart Objects and Illustrator Vector Smart Objects. You must include text. Final length of the animation can be between 10 and 30 seconds. You will not be turning in prints. What's optional is to use sound. If you're doing a GIF animation that's for the web, like a header animation or an animation in like the WordPress website, then you cannot include sound in a GIF animation. If you want to use sound, you need to make a video file, and I'll be going over how to do that next week. How to finalize your file, either as a GIF animation or a video file. For extra credit, sound is not extra credit if you use sound, but what is extra credit is if you publish your work on the web and you send me a URL that links me to see where your work is on either a website. You could use WordPress.com and set up your animation on a page of a WordPress website or on the header of a WordPress website. Or if you use you have a different method of creating a website, that's fine. The other option is if you want to upload your video to YouTube or Vimeo and send me a link to your video online. So you can send me the link to my email address here, or you can use Canvas and use the URL tab to submit the paste in your URL. And as long as I can click on it and get to see your work published online, then you get 10 points of extra credit. Okay, so we already went through the getting started process, and now let's talk about beginning the animation. So I got the timeline up, but I need to activate the timeline. The first step I'd like you to do is choose the video timeline option. So right now it's already selected video timeline. If you click the drop down, you'll see that you have two choices, video timeline and frame animation. I'm going to be talking about how to incorporate frame animation later, but I'd like you to start with the video timeline. So make sure you choose create video timeline to start with, and then click, and nothing's going to happen until you actually click on the button create video timeline. It seems a little non-intuitive because you'd think that you just select one and then it's done, but no, you have to then click on create video timeline as a button, and that's what activates the timeline so it can actually work. So now all the layers in my layers panel have become layers in the timeline. And then each layer can be opened up and animated. They have different properties depending on the type of layer that it is. It'll give you different options for animation. So this one here, I'm going to name this one dog. So a layer like the dog layer, that's just purely pixels layer. It has 3 ways to animate. You can animate position, you can animate the opacity, and you can animate the style. So for animating position on the dog, I can animate the movement side to side, up and down, diagonally. But the thing about this is I cannot rotate the dog, I can't scale the dog, because all I have is position. One way that you can have more options in what you can do is to convert your layer to a smart object, and that's what I'd like you to do. That's a requirement. So you should, at least one of your layers, you should convert to a smart object. But I could just show you the basics. I guess we're running out of time. Well, let me just show you the basics. So if I was to animate this, just the position, I like to move things out of frame to start with so that I have a clear screen to begin. And I would do the same thing with the text and the logo. I might not even use those. Maybe I'll just turn those off. One thing that's important when animating is that when you're on your move tool, you make sure that auto select is unchecked. Because if it's checked and I want to move the dog out of frame and then I want to move the dog back into frame, it's impossible. I can't grab the dog to move the dog back into frame because it just doesn't let me. It's trying to select something that's not there when I'm on auto select. So what I need to do is uncheck auto select, and then I can use the layer panel to remotely select what I want, and that will allow me to bring the dog back into frame. So keep auto keep auto select off for the most part, and use your layers panel to choose what you want to select. So I'm working with the dog, so I want to start with the dog out of frame. And then another thing to set up at the beginning is your frame rate. So because I set this up for television, the television standard frame rate is approximately 30 frames a second. So it's telling me that there, it's a strange number, 29.97. It's because the frame rate in television technology fluctuates every so often. It's going to count up 28 frames per second. If you're doing this just for the web, and if you plan on doing a GIF animation, then you should set your frame rate to something different. So you can click on the little flyout option there. It's not ideal for displaying on television, but it is ideal for creating a GIF animation. Otherwise, if you don't lower your frame rate, you won't be able to create a GIF animation. It'll be too much data, and it will crash the system. So so to change the frame rate, you click that flyout button on the timeline, you go to set timeline frame rate, and you choose a lower frame rate, which makes the animation a little more choppy, not as smooth, but if it's great for a GIF animation. So I'm going to choose 12 and say okay, and we'll see what happens. It shrinks everything down because now it will count up 12 frames a second. So notice there's a little counter here. That's a counter that's in timecode format. So as I move the playhead forward, it's counting up a certain number of frames, in this case 12 frames. Every time it reaches 12 frames, it goes up a second in the numbers over to the left. And it keeps counting and counting and counting and going up seconds. What about the numbers to the left of seconds? What do you think that's going to be counting up? Feel free to shout out, use your voice. There's not a lot of us left here now, so be brave. What do you guys think?
I don't know.
That's minutes. That's an honest answer. Minutes, and then, okay, so if this is frames, this is seconds, this is minutes, what do you think the numbers over to the left of that, of minutes, are? We got frames, seconds, minutes, then what?
Hours.
Hours, very good. So that's time code. Now you understand the format of time code and how to read it. So now you can tell how long the duration of your animation is by how the length where your playhead is and what it reads down here. So now I'm at 4 seconds and 10 frames. I can also extend the length of these layers by dragging them longer. Or you can trim a layer. So now, well, here, let me turn these other things back on. So I could trim, and now, so this is how you do the simple banner ads where things just appear one at a time. And then the dog is not there yet. Here. Okay, so I'll make the dog start here. How about? Okay, so if I wanted to do some keyframing, I would start by putting my playhead where I want to begin, and then deciding what property I want to keyframe. So let's say I want to keyframe position. So I click the stopwatch to begin. It puts the first keyframe where my playhead is, and it holds the position of where the dog is currently located as stored in that keyframe. Then I move the playhead forward, and then I can use my move tool to drag the dog to a new position. As soon as I change the dog's position, a new keyframe appears, and now there is a transition. When I drag my playhead back, I can press the spacebar to play forward, and there's a transition between keyframes from point A to point B, a smooth transitioning, and that's animation. So then I can move my playhead forward and then move my dog to another location, and so on and so on. and every time I make a change, a new keyframe appears. But like I said, with just having position as my property to animate, I'm a little bit limited in what I can do. So I recommend that you convert your layer to a smart object before you start animating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the stopwatch again and watch what happens. When I click the stopwatch a second time, it's going to delete all my keyframes. You might think clicking the stopwatch adds a keyframe. No, it doesn't. It only initializes keyframing the first time you click on it and puts down the first keyframe. But if you click on the stopwatch again, it deletes everything. So be aware of that. Okay, what I want to do is I want to convert this dog to a smart object layer. So I can do that by selecting the layer and going to layer, smart object, convert to smart object, or I can right click the layer and choose convert to smart object. Now when I open up the layer, I have transform as an option. So I can keyframe the dog like this. So I can first, so transform gives me many more choices. So that, and you only get transformed because this is a, what type of layer? It's a, look at it, look at the thumbnail. It's a smart object layer. So I can move the dog where I want to start. Click the stopwatch, put the playhead where I want to begin. Click the stopwatch, it puts the first keyframe down. Then I drag my playhead forward. Then I can move my dog forward. Since this is transform, I could even scale the dog too. But before I do that, let me just move my playhead forward again. Maybe I want the dog to just pause there for a moment. So instead of making a change in where the dog's located by dragging the dog, instead I'm going to use the add remove keyframe button to add an additional keyframe to create a pause. So this keyframe is just the same as the previous keyframe. So it will create a pause where the dog's just standing there. Now I'm going to move my playhead forward and drag the dog to another location, and a keyframe automatically gets placed. This time maybe I'm going to hit Command T because this is transform, so I can do any of the transform options. Scale, rotation, distort, anything, and it'll animate. Or right now I'm just doing free transform, Command T. So I can scale the dog, I can rotate the dog a little bit, and then I can press return. And now those changes are now stored in this keyframe. So now from this keyframe to the end keyframe, it's transitioning to those changes. So now I might move the dog forward and then Command T and then rotate the dog back and then press return, and now there's a transitioning from rotation, and then I can move the dog out, hit Command T, rotate the dog back up, go out, press return. And so now I have keyframed using options that are transform options. Okay, so then what else can I do? I can have the dog disappear and reappear using opacity. So I can click the stopwatch to begin. Wherever my playhead is, it puts the first keyframe down. I move my playhead forward. If I want the dog to be like a sorceress dog and disappear and reappear, how do I change opacity? You go to opacity in the layer, and the layer is selected, and I bring down the opacity, so the dog disappeared. Then I move my playhead forward, I want the dog to reappear, I bring up opacity, and a keyframe is automatically placed. So then animation happens, so the dog is disappearing, reappearing. And then let's say I want to do a style animation. So I click the stopwatch on style, and so right now the style refers to layer style. There's no layer styles on this layer at this point. If I move my playhead forward, then I can use the styles panel here to add a style of some sort. There's like wood or any of these styles here. Fur, maybe this one. So whatever I choose here, it's stored now in this keyframe that automatically gets placed. Or here, maybe I want to style earlier, so I can add a keyframe to hold the normal style, and then I could move forward, and then I could do my own style. I could double click on the dog layer, and then I could put like bevel on the dog, adjust the depth. I could do a color overlay, normal. Let's see, increase the depth and the size of the bevel, and whatever. I can just name this new style, and I can call this ice, and say OK. So then I say OK there, and now in the styles panel, let's close this all up, I'll be able to find my own style there that I named ice. And then I can go back to, then it'll just transition from my style back to normal, to the other style that I selected. So that's a little bit to get you started, so you can start planning out your animation and practicing the steps of keyframing and getting things moving. And think of a layout. Sometimes it's good to start with developing a layout, and then you can move things off screen and then have them move on screen, and work backwards. So if you have, for example, the text, if I wanted the text here and the logo here, I can go back to auto select just so it's easier to move things around. So if I wanted these to be like that, you can work backwards. So I could go open up text, and text already has transform there. And then at a certain point, I want the text to come in. So I click the stopwatch, and this time I'll work backwards. So I'll go backwards, and then I'll select the text layer and move the text off screen. So it creates a keyframe with it off screen and then moves on screen. Same thing with the logo. The logo is where I want it, so I can go to do position on the logo, click the stopwatch. Oops, except it might be that I need to do vector mask position for this one. Let's see. And then I move the logo off. Yeah, that will work. So now it's working backwards. Oh wait, no. Let me do that again. Let me delete the... Let me undo that. Undo. Okay, undo. Okay, so the logo, the ellipse, it's actually vector mask position, not position, because this is a vector. So vector mask position, so I click to add the keyframe, I move the playhead off, I move the playhead backwards, and then I can use my my path selection tool, and then I can move the logo off, and now it will transition on to where I want it. Okay, so just those are the basics. Sorry to go over. Thanks everyone.